Okay, I got the okay from tech. Everyone logged in? Welcome. I would like to call the May 5th, 2022 regular meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission to order at 6:02 p.m. Please turn off your cell phones or set them to vibrate. I'm doing that right now. Agendas and speaker slips are in the back of the room, but I think everyone here knows that already. Let the record reflect that 4 planning commissioners are present with 1 seat vacant. We like to start each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let's see, we like to start each meeting with oral communications. Does anyone wish to? I see only one member in the audience, so and he says no. So are there any changes to the public agenda, Dina?
There are none.
All right. Next, we move on to the consent calendar. These items are considered non-controversial or routine in nature. We have only one item on the consent calendar today, and that is Fox Point Farms at 1150 Quail Gardens Drive. This staff has recommended this item be continued off calendar or also May 19th. I was uncertain. The staff report listed it as with a fixed date. This is the only item. Does anyone wish to pull this for discussion? Oh, really?
It would be good to
Tech,
pull it just to find out why it's being continued.
Okay, yeah, we are going to pull that and get a report if we can. Just because the question, we don't need a report. I think we just wanted to know why.
Yes, it's continued off calendar. It will be re-noticed. It's being continued to make a correction on the legal notice that went out. We wanted to make sure that it was properly noticed. So you will hear it on May 19th.
Excellent, thank you. Chris, are you still down?
I do. I think I need tech to come and help me.
Tech? Do we have tech in the background somewhere? They usually come a-running. Done. Done. One moment. We're going to pause. Excellent. So can I get a motion on the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
In a second?
It looks
got
like,
it. Here, I see it.
sorry, it looks like Commissioner Dalton was the mover and Commissioner Ryan was the second. Oh, now it cleared.
You were
I'll
slow.
withdraw my motion and let Susan go.
Okay, so Susan is the maker. Were you able to? I don't see it pop up here. Susan, are you able to push? Do you see the button to make the motion?
To move to the consent calendar?
Go to on the floor.
Yes.
No, press on.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Can we vote? Let the record show that motion passed unanimously with 4 votes yes. And we're going to move right on to our regular agenda. Now, again, I'm not going to explain about members of the public pulling pink speaker slips, since former Commissioner Glenn O'Grady is the only audience member today. On tonight's regular agenda, we have only 2 items, and we'll start right off with the item 8A, election of the Planning Commission Chair and Vice Chair. Now, we're behind the times here. I've read through our bylaws again, And at our first, it says, at our first regular meeting in March, or the next regular meeting afterward, the commission will appoint from among its members a chair and a vice chair. And the terms of these appointments shall end at the conclusion of the first regular meeting in March of the following year. So right now, we're kind of, I'm not even really, I'm more acting vice chair. So I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners if you would please unmute yourself and let's discuss it. Anyone have any thoughts on the matter?
Do you want to vote for both at one time, or do you want to vote for the
Let's-
chair?
I think we should probably decide on a chair first, and then we can see where we go from there.
Okay. I would nominate you, Kevin, to continue on as chair.
Well, I would be open to that again. I've got 2 years left. So I thank you. Do we, our legal rep, do we need an official vote for this?
Are there any other motions? Are there any other nominations?
No, I support Kevin.
Seeing none, then you can take a vote.
Okay, seeing none, say again.
So you need a motion and a second?
Yes, we have a motion and a
So
second.
move.
And we have the item on the,
Oh, they've already done.
yep. It's a little delayed. Thank you all for your confidence. We need a vice chair from the 3 commissioners left. In the past, I learned this from Glenn O'Grady when he had Bruce Ayler sitting next to him. Glenn spent more time watching the meeting, and Bruce kind of kept an eye on things that he was missing. When Bruce took over as chair, I kind of did similar. And, you know, Bruce was never sick or missing, so I only really got to chair 2 meetings. But, and that would be the biggest responsibility is, you know, if I'm gone, then the vice chair is chair. So first, I guess I'd ask, is there interest amongst anyone here? Susan, Steve, Chris?
Yeah, I would be interested in the vice chair.
Okay, we have 1 nomination. We don't need a second on that. Anyone else?
I would support Susan's nomination.
Great, Chris? Doesn't need to be unanimous.
What's that?
It doesn't need to be unanimous.
No, I understand. No, I think Steve would do a great job as well. I'd like to consider him.
Well, I think I'd be happy to work with either of you. It's kind of awkward because, you know, we are
I
4 of us. Susan, if I have any concern, it's with your hearing issues. It's a disability. I wouldn't ever want to consider that this would.
I feel very confident in terms of I'm using texting now. I see the captioning for our meetings, so it helps my hearing.
Oh, excellent. So, let's see. So again, I'm going to lean over to my legal representative. How would I have 2 nominations on the floor.
So
Do I
there are
vote
two
for-
nominations, so then the question is there a motion? And then there'd be a motion and a second, and then you could vote on that motion.
So do I have a motion from Chris or Steve?
I'll make a motion to nominate Steve.
I'll actually, I'll second that motion because I want to hear this vote. I'm sorry, Susan. You still love me, right? The motion for Steve Dalton as vice chair passes with a vote of 3-1, with Commissioner Sherrod voting nay. And that's it for this item, right? I think it's proper to move on to item 8B, the local appeal period timelines. Project policy 5220-2022. So this is a public hearing to consider amendments to the municipal code and local coastal program pertaining to the appeal period timeline. In January of this year, City Council instructed staff to begin working on the amendments to this code and present a recommendation to the Planning Commission, which is why we're here this evening. Staff will return to City Council with draft ordinances, including recommendations from the Planning Commission. First, are there any disclosures? Hearing none, we'll begin with a staff report by Planner 4, Melinda Dacey. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and good evening, Planning Commissioners, members of the public. I'm Melinda Dacey. I'm the project planner processing the local appeal period timeline ordinance amendment. So just to provide some quick background, the City Council did initiate the ordinance amendment with Resolution 2022-02 back on January 19th to update the city's municipal code and local coastal program amendments. So the goals with this ordinance is to streamline the city's review procedures as well as to reduce the number of code amendments if the appeal time needs to be changed again in the future. So our current municipal code specifies 15 calendar days for the appeal period timeline. There is an exception in the code for subdivision, lot line adjustments, or any other kind of subdivision map act type of development projects. They require 10 calendar days under the government code. As going through this effort, staff also found that the specific dates are identified throughout several sections in the municipal code and that the appeals chapter 1.12 is not consistently referenced throughout the municipal code. Some sections also do not even specify or reference the chapter 1.12 appeals procedures either. So part of the amendment, the recommendation is to change the 15 calendar days to 10 calendar days. And going through this exercise, staff also found that there are exceptions for a denial of map extension of time request in state law, which is 15 days. So there's an exception included in the ordinance for that. We're also removing the date references throughout the municipal code sections when there are greater than 10 days identified. And the appeals chapter has also been included in the sections that are being proposed for update. So there's consistency in the municipal code. So I have some sample municipal code changes that you can see on the screen, and this is kind of consistently what staff applied throughout the ordinance updates. So the strike through denotes that there's text being deleted, and anything that is underlined is anything that is being added to the municipal code sections. We're also doing some miscellaneous code cleanup, such as the Director of Development Services job title. So there's sections where it was still referenced as the Director of Planning and Building Services. There were some little asterisk star references that were being removed, as well as there's a subsection within the Coastal Development Permit chapter that no longer exists within the municipal code, and that section is on the screen for you. Staff did receive an additional public comment, and we are proposing an amendment to the ordinance to incorporate some clarifications into the code. So when there is a city holiday, the code did specify that the time limit will be extended for an appeal to be filed to the next business day. And so to clarify with the 10 calendar days, if it does fall on a dark Friday or a weekend, that the appeal filing would be pushed to the next business day of the city. And so the next steps in our process is we anticipate bringing the ordinance amendment to City Council in August, and then a local coastal program amendment submittal in the fall and winter of this year. With that, staff recommends that the public hearing be conducted and that the Planning Commission adopt resolution PC 2022-04, recommending that the City Council adopt draft City Council ordinance numbers 2022-06 and draft City Council ordinance number 2022-07 pertaining to the local appeal period timelines as modified. And with that, concludes staff's presentation, where I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of clarification? Steve?
Thank you. Could you clarify if the next business day language is already in the municipal code? Would this be restating that, or is this new language that's writing out a current policy or something?
Yeah, so the next business day is already in the code. So I have the exact language on the screen before you. What we're adding to the section is the underline, and we're striking the reference to holiday. So everything else that you see there was already in the municipal code. There had been instances where appeals were being filed, or the day of the appeal filing was occurring on the dark Friday, and it had been the city's policy to extend that to the next business day. So this will address that policy as well as clarification for the code.
Thank you.
So it would seem this is basically cleaning up the ordinance a bit.
That's correct.
I'm going to jump in. There was a couple things. The 10-day period, I know for a lot of appeals now it's 15, most of ours are. At what level was that discussion made? The 10 to 15 to 12 to whatever?
So the existing municipal code does specify calendar days. So it does say 15 calendar days. If you look on your staff report, page 7 of 18, at the top of the page is the municipal code language that currently exists for the appeal period information. It says the 15th calendar day following the determination which is challenged. So we're changing that to 10. And then staff also researched the other coastal communities in San Diego area, and most of the other jurisdictions also have 10 days specified within their code. Some say business, or some say calendar, and then some don't actually reference calendar or business. So because our code does already specify calendar, we're going to stick with that.
Yeah, I understood that. I was the 10 days versus 15 days. It was because, let me see, I can just pull that up. Actually, I was looking through the report from January here.
Of why, the question is why 10 versus the 15? Is that the
Correct.
question?
That is the question.
Okay.
Very
So
clear.
the question, so the proposal is because we have projects that are proposing maps as well as, maybe it's a CDP, and so they have different appeal periods. So the idea was to make them consistent, and so we are making those consistent and being the 10-day appeal period instead of bringing the other up to 15. It also helps with streamlining the process and making sure that the process continues to move through our review process and getting to city council or the other body, whichever is that higher body approval.
That's great. That's all I got. Thanks. I'll now open the hearing for public comment. Dina, do we have any public comment?
We do. Most
Today.
important speaker this evening. We have Mr. Glenn O'Grady.
Actually, Kevin, you answered one of the things I wanted to bring up. My concern is mainly for residents who are, especially the ones who, like this is their first meeting. We have a group of residents that are always here. They probably know the code better than we do. But there are projects that go into areas where the neighbors have an objection. They come first time to the planning commission meeting. They don't know how it all works. So I'm concerned that, shortening that time puts them at a disadvantage if they choose to appeal. So one, I appreciate the language change in the memo to move it to the next business day when it falls on a weekend. But I was looking online, and I know you can find the appeal form in the long list of different forms and applications. Can we make it easier to find? Can we, it's like 3 pages, I think, is the current appeal form. Can we sort of bolster what we, some language or guidance on filling out that appeal so that if you are going to shorten that process, that at least residents aren't put at a disadvantage because it's new to them, to give them, basically it's really a week because we're meeting tonight. If you have a long night in a project, you can't really do much on the next day, Friday. So you really got that 1 week to react. And if you're going to try to, if a resident's going to try to find an expert that they want to consult and stuff like that, it really kind of compresses the time. They have regular jobs, they have families and stuff like that. So applicants are usually well-oiled. They can react a lot quicker, but a lot of residents might put it at a disadvantage. So I just want to make it easy, not to encourage them to appeal. We don't like to be challenged. I understand that, but that's part of the process. I just want to make it as easy for a resident to pursue as possible. So that's my concern. I still like the 15-day, but if you're going to shorten it, then make it easy for people to file appeal. They got to pay money, so I don't think we're going to encourage unnecessary appeals by doing that. But just, so it's easy on residents. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Grady. I'm going to close the public comment now and open this to deliberation.
So I just want to say thank you to Glenn, because I really appreciate when he comes to these meetings and the letters that he writes, and I appreciate that staff takes action sometimes often on the letters that Glenn writes, because he does have a lot to contribute. He's not on the commission anymore, but he has a lot to contribute, so I really appreciate all the input he gives and how it assists us, really, and assists staff. I do like the idea of, in reading the letter, trying to get the information out to the public in a better way. I've spent a lot of time going through the website and trying to gather information, and I think it would be a nice addition to the website if it had a page that said, how much time do I have to do whatever? And there's some place people can go that's a little bit more user-friendly for members of the public to go to know what the timing is. And another thing we could think about doing, so taking it back to what I do, when a jury reads a verdict, after the verdict and the sentence, the judge reads a little thing that the defendant has within 30 days to file an appeal. So we could also try to incorporate something like that at the end of a meeting, that any decision made here tonight, the applicant has 10 calendar days to file with staff. So we could incorporate it into the end of meetings as well. And
I like
that way, whoever's here and the interested party can hear it verbally.
It's also on the agenda, at the end of the agenda.
It is, if people read, if people get to that part.
That's a good one, Chris. I like that a lot. And that's easy enough. It can just go into our default agenda, or I've actually inherited a script which is passed down through like 4 or 5 different planning commissioners or chairs. And, it's just boilerplate. I think it's great. We should, whether we agree or not, I think I'll share that at the end of every meeting anyway.
I like the idea, but I don't want that to be a cause, like some
like
sort of
encouraging people?
like you're required to do that, and you fail to mention the appeal period at the end, and someone then says, well, then it didn't become official. I like as a courtesy to the public to try to outline this thing, but I don't want that to override the basic rule that 10 days is the calendar. Whether we say that or not, that's the rule. In general, I'm supportive of moving it from 15 to 10. I think that's more consistent with the rest of the code.
Well, just looking at how overworked we are. Make sense, Susan?
Well, I did a little research, and I noticed that overseas, planning commissions usually have anywhere from 4 to 6 months to appeal. I noticed that in our nation, it's more like 30 days to 12 weeks. And so when I looked at this, I thought, wow, it's pretty short. There could be cause for that. I don't know when this ordinance was originally drafted, if there were certain conditions or other agencies involved where we really need to be expeditious with this appeal process. But it does seem to me anything, as this gentleman has said, anything we can do to give the public a little bit more time. Also, I have a question. Can it only be the party who is denied that can appeal? Or can any resident, any member of the public appeal a decision of the planning commission?
Turn to our attorney, Scott Porter. Oh, Anna knows, Anna knows.
That's okay. A member of the public may appeal a project as well. So it can be both
Okay,
parties.
so that is different than most other planning commission decisions, which only the party that's denied can appeal typically in some other jurisdictions, not our jurisdiction. So that might be why they have more time than we do.
I think it would be more common to see like members of the public appeal and approval because they want it to be denied. And there, it's like, sure, it's open to everyone. I mean, it'd be an odd situation where the case is approved and, or actually, no, the case was denied and the applicant didn't appeal. And some other member of, I suppose, a neighbor could say, no, I'll appeal on their behalf. But that would be foolish because, you know, maybe they've decided that there was too much opposition. I don't want to do this anymore. But that's a good point. I like the language that I see in this very much. I was kind of up in the air on the 10 versus 15 days. I think most of the decisions that would be appealed, people who come to the meeting or people are going to appeal it are probably sitting in the meeting. They've probably read the staff reports and they're already prepared to appeal something that's, if it's going to go against the way they strongly feel. I mean, not everybody, but this is, as someone's pointed out, there's a very active and activist population we have here. So it'll get appealed, and within 10 days. And I love the language. There was an elegant solution. Removing holidays certainly was a plus. The way it's worded now, it also covers the Fridays where City Hall is closed. So you could conceivably get 12 days.
So I have a follow-up question for staff, which is that, do you perceive the ability of an appeal from the person who is denied or approved, whether they want to appeal either way, different than a resident, a general resident? Do you think there should be a different amount of time depending on who is making this appeal? If it's someone who's involved in the decision and put forward a proposal and they want to now appeal that decision, I think it's different than if it's a resident.
I think, I was just going to respond and say that I think the goal is to simplify it, and having two different timelines would be more, I think, complicated and confusing. But I do understand where you're coming from on somebody who's invested the time and money of offering them. But I'm not aware of any other cities that provide two different timelines. Yeah, and I'm seeing a shake of heads of no from the other staff as well.
And I will point out that shortened timelines are often better for the city from a liability perspective for a few reasons. Number one, obviously, there's a shorter time period, so there's that. But then also there's a number of statutes that essentially say that the city needs to act on a project within a specified time frame, and depending on what type of application it is, that could include appeal periods. So in effect, what ends up happening is the city ends up losing, and decision makers like yourselves end up losing the ability to continue meetings, to say, actually, I would like more information. The shorter the time frame allows you to, let's say there's a 60-day time frame. Well, if you continue a meeting, if you only have a 10-day appeal period, then that 60-day time frame might not get squished as much.
I'd also like to point out that we're talking about residents. The applicants are residents often too. If you're doing a custom home, you're as much a resident of Encinitas as an outside developer, which I think we're really talking about when we've been saying. So a resident wants to get started on constructing their own home as well. And I think something that helps expedite or just provides that clarity about what the process is helpful. To Mr. O'Grady's comment, the form is available online. So, you know, if there was a decision on a Thursday night, they can go look at that form on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. You know, they can start their thing. So it's not like totally burned days. They do have that time that they can start. And finally, I would say, no one is, I mean, if you're involved in a project, I agree with your earlier comments, Kevin. Everybody's very aware of what the next step is in these things. The opposition to projects are not randomly showing up here and happen to oppose a project. They've researched those projects, they're actively fighting them, and they would be very aware of what the appeal period is.
Well, if everyone's spoken, I'd entertain a motion. I have one written out in case anyone's.
Kevin has it written down.
I would make a motion that we approve the staff report with the amended 10 days excluding city hall outages.
From the memo.
Yeah, the memo.
Excellent.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor. Can we call the question? All right, looks like the motion passes, unanimous vote. And we're moving on with our agenda. The next up is future agenda items added by planning commissioners. Is there anything anyone would like to? Hearing none. I'm going to ask, next up is planning commission reports. And there are at least one planning commissioner reports. Steve and I met to go over with Anna Kalamusi to go over the bylaws and look at any possible changes. And it was basically a recap of where we were. There was some things we had asked for some clarification on. I think there might be one more meeting, and then hopefully we'll bring this back to Planning Commission sooner rather than later. Depending on our schedules, I mean, maybe we could be by the 19th? Or is that?
I think that an ideal time may be when the new member of the
Oh, yeah.
planning commission is on.
So we can have a good discussion of the bylaws. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you. And city planner reports and planning commission follow-up log. Got anything?
The only thing I have is on May 23rd, there is going to be at 6 p.m. at the community center. It's the active transportation plan map workshop, which is implementing the active transportation plan. It's the continuation workshop for that.
Cool. Well, that's great. I'm going to say our thanks to everyone involved today, and our next regularly scheduled meeting is May 19th, 2022, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.